be as careful with my time
Mm-hmm.
as possible, but also make sure that people know that I'm being careful with my time and theirs.
I see.
So I mean, and it's all about time, resources, and money
Yes,
when
yes,
building a company.
yes.
So you either have to spend time, you either have to use a lot of resources, or you either have to spend money. So whenever I'm quoting a client, whenever I'm estimating something for a team, like I'm always doing that calculation as quickly as possible, and I'm saying, well, this is going to take too much time, so here's how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Life is an endless stream of challenges, but no worries. Manuj is bringing the world's best minds right here for you.
My gosh, Manuj, you just blew my mind.
Thank you, universe. Manuj, thank you.
I'm so grateful.
It makes me feel a bit better.
Thank you.
Bootstrapping your dreams is here to give you what you need to succeed.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host, Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Heather Wilde, who is a CTO. She's an angel investor, a coach, and she's also an author. So she's doing some really, really interesting thing. I'm really excited to have her. Heather, welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Take us down the memory lane. And tell us how it all got started. You are doing some really high-tech stuff, and I'm from the tech industry myself. It's not very usual to interact with female CTOs, so there must be some special stories behind it. So please do share with us.
So I actually have my father to blame for this one, of course. And a lot of you out there, I'm sure a lot of you have daughters, and they might be interested in technology. When I was 8, my dad gave me my first computer. This was 1984, so a lot of people didn't have computers. And he was trying to make up for something he did that I was upset with. So he bought me a computer, all of my very own, and I fell in love with it right away. And of course, I forgave him. It's just been a love affair ever since with computers and programming and robotics. Like my father and I, we would spend weekends going to flea markets, getting like broken down things so I could build transistors and build all sorts of things, and that led me to becoming an engineer. So I'm not just a programmer, but I also have the mechanical engineering background as well.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, I mean sometimes fate just brings us to the right point for whatever reason, and we find the purpose that we have in life. And I think it's lucky to run into these things, because a lot of people, even when they are in their 60s, they fail to find exactly what they love to do, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's one of the things, like the word passion actually comes from the root of it means burning. So that burning feeling that you have, and I don't think that ever goes away. I mean, you could be 60, you could be 90, and you're going to have passions for things. And they can change throughout your life. For me, it just happened to be like every time I see a robot, I'm like, oh, I want to build that thing. I want to take it apart. I want to figure out how it talks. So
yeah, that's awesome. So as you as you were going through your journey, tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you get involved in technology? Did you go to a big company? Did you start your own startup? Because I know that you are passionate about innovation. You have written a book about startups, which we'll talk about later. But how did it unfold for you?
So for me, I had my heart set on NASA. Like I wanted to become an astronaut. I wanted to go and go into space and do all that. So my dreams were to work at NASA. And so when I was 16, I got accepted into a program at Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama. So I was working with I went to school for astronautical engineering. I was working with the people at Marshall Space Flight Center. Unfortunately, I can't be an astronaut because of my health. So they transferred me I got to work on what became the International Space Station. And I started programming satellites and did all of those kinds of things, and then transferred up to the Naval Research Labs in Washington, D.C. And so again, I was working with the military and the government early on, and it became really difficult for me, like being around all the astronauts and being around NASA, like knowing that I was never going to go into space. So I then transferred from government to private sector, and I was still at a large company, but I went into game design. So I started working at THQ, which was a large game company at the time, around about the size of Blizzard. It was pretty big, international company, multinational company. And it was only after THQ went bankrupt that I started working with startups.
I see. So it's a fascinating journey, and I'm sorry to hear about the things that come in the way to realizing your dreams, but that's how life is, I guess. So tell us a little bit about what you find different between the public sector and the private sector, because when I work with the government organizations, the environment is quite different. So what are your thoughts? How do you find them?
So I work a lot with the private sector and the public sector. Like, in fact, I work with the Space Force and the Air Force and a lot of government entities now. Again, a lot of people have the misconception that everything moves just at a glacial pace internally, and a lot of that can happen in a large enterprise, of course, any kind of enterprise. Like, I mean, you go into, I mean, even at Facebook, that kind of thing can happen.
Absolutely.
It's the main issue is finding the right person. Like you've got the frozen middle in a government entity, and there's a lot of people that want to get things done on, like, the entrepreneurs. Like, you've got a lot of entrepreneurs that want to get things done. You've got a lot of people at the top that want to get things done, but you've got those bureaucrats that are sitting there in those desk jobs forever, that for one reason or other, just they've got all the power and nothing happens. And a lot of that can happen, like, for some reason in the private sector, people are able to be fired. So you don't tend to see that happen as much as frequently, but you can't get fired in a government position. You just get transferred. So it doesn't happen as much.
Yeah. So, but from what I know about you, you are trying to change quite a few things there. You are working with the government in a very unique way, helping private sectors actually also get traction in the government. So can you share a little bit about that?
So one of the things that my team does is we help with the Air Force and the Space Force with their groups called SpaceWorks and AFWorks, which are the innovation programs for the Department of the Air Force. And this helps private sector, like industry people and academia, communicate with the Air Force people about the problems that they have. And whereas it's a big black box, like when you're trying to talk to somebody in the military, if you're trying to find somebody in the Air Force, I mean, this is a huge organization of millions of people. You're never going to find the exact person that has the problem that you have a solution for if you're an industry person. And even if you do, finding the person that has the money to buy that, like to pay for your thing, is very difficult. And then even if you find the person that has the money, like making sure that it's the right color of money is even more difficult. So so what we do is we act as networkers and translators for industry to be able to match people up. Like, so Air Force people come to us, Department of the Air Force, which includes Space Force, they come to us and say, hey, we've got this problem, find us people that can solve it. And like, we have money for this, so we'll pay them as soon as, like, you find us people that can solve it.
That's awesome. And you mentioned something which was very intriguing, like right color of money. What did you mean by that?
So color of money means, like, so say you have a project that you want something done, and like it is like it would be a marketing project, but the funds that they have are only for an engineering project,
Ah,
even though it is for a marketing thing
I
for
see.
the engineers. Well,
Okay.
they need like marketing funds for the engineering team, or else they can't do it.
I
So
see.
like they need to like go through and find money that that matches the project that it is.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very interesting. And so, how long you've been involved in this? Like, can you share any numbers? Like, how many companies you've helped? How much money you've been able to sort of help transact with the Air Force or save or what have you?
So we've had. I know we're just updating all of the numbers right now. I think there's been something over like $60 million worth of grants or awards that have
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah.
given, and a couple hundred teams that were awarded from our projects, just our AFWorks challenges.
Yeah.
Many more millions out of the SIBR program, and many more thousands of companies out of that program as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can come through. And I've been involved with this for 3 years now. The program's been around for 4. So the fact that like we've been giving out like millions of dollars and lots of contracts for companies that would never have even had government contracts in the first place is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that is amazing. That's yeah, some of the details that you shared with me last time during our meeting, they're mind blowing. So that's great work you're doing. Now let's come back to your startup journey and your book, which is A Birth of a Unicorn. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, Birth of a Unicorn is based on the founding of Evernote, the company. So, I was one of the original employees at Evernote, and I wrote this book to help people understand that there's a lot of work that goes into creating $1 billion company that a lot of people don't see. And like for this, it's 13 years from the start of the book to the end of the book. And by the end of the book is when we become the $1 billion company. So it's like it starts at like the company before Evernote, and how the team comes together, how like the things that we're learning, like all of the stuff that we need to learn in order to create the type of company that Evernote becomes. And also the way that I wrote the book was in a completely different way than most business books would be written. I put it in because all of our lives don't stop at the office. I wrote it as like, here's what was happening at work, here's what was happening at home.
I see. You are listening to Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show with Manuj Aggarwal. Businesses face numerous challenges like finding the right product market fit, determining the market size, implementing a winning go-to-market strategy, crafting customer-centric USP, competitive analysis, looking for funding, building up cash flow and profitability. We have made a lot of free resources available to the entrepreneurial community, including this podcast. We invite you to check out our websites and follow us on social channels. The links are in the show notes. We hope you find the resources useful and utilize them to grow your business. We also have some programs for entrepreneurs. If you find our content useful, then you will definitely find the programs outstanding. So do check them out. I see. That's awesome. And so how was that experience like for you in particular? Going, I mean, what stage were you involved in? Like, were you involved in when they became $1 billion company, or?
So I was the head of global technical support. So there were 8 of us when we started. There were 450 when I left the company, and it was a 7-day a week, 24 hour a day, 365 day a year life for me for the 6 years that I did it. And everyone that was involved had a very similar experience, except like I was living on my boat.
Wow.
but so that wasn't similar. But I mean, the way that we worked was very similar. That was the same for everyone, and it was really, really difficult because and I mean, any startup founder is gonna feel their story when reading this book.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. And so, so what are some of the key things that you can maybe share? I mean, obviously we don't want to go give away everything, but one or two nuggets that you can share with us that you have seen, because you have a very unique vantage point, right? You work with the government, you work with all these innovative companies, you have worked with Evernote. So what is the common thread you can share that makes a company successful?
The main thing that I have seen that makes a company successful is that you have to prioritize the business over all of your relationships. And while that doesn't make you a very nice person to everyone else, like a successful business, I mean, if you look at Elon Musk, if you look at Jeff Bezos, if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, if you look at Bill Gates, what is like the number one trait that's popping to the top of your head when I'm saying all these? Like, it's not like, oh, they're the nicest guy in the world. Like it is like, because they're not. I mean, they may be a very nice person. I don't know, but like that's not the perception, and there's a reason for that. Like if you want to be a successful company, you have to not care about what people think about you. You have to think about your business above everything else. And most people are smart enough to not do that. Like there's a few sociopaths like me out there. No, I'm kidding. But there's a few people out there that will go and they will try to just keep creating successful businesses to the detriment of everything else. Like when I realized what it was costing me, that was when I got off the wheel.
I see. That is very, very interesting viewpoint. And so like, what are some of the, I mean, after you left Evernote, did you ever try to accumulate more ways to counteract that? Like, let's say if you do get involved in another startup, are you able to draw upon that experience and say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, yet I will be able to grow this company? So like, is there an antidote to this as well?
Sort of. So basically what I do now is I've found ways to be as careful with my time as possible, but also make sure that people know that I'm being careful with my time and theirs. So it's I mean, and it's all about time, resources, and money when building a company. So you either have to spend time, you either have to use a lot of resources, or you either have to spend money. So whenever I'm quoting a client, whenever I'm estimating something for a team, like I'm always doing that calculation as quickly as possible. And I'm saying, well, this is going to take too much time, so here's how much it's going to cost. And I'm not willing to throw this many people on it, so here's how much it's going to cost. So it always becomes like, this is how much it's going to cost.
No, that's a very good point. Time is something that will never come back. It's the most precious commodity we have. Okay, that's awesome. And so, having gone through all these different business cycles, different types of startups that are coming up, have you seen any shift in direction or the kind of ideas people are being successful with? Like, is clean tech the latest thing to get into? Is mental health the latest thing to get into? Like, are you seeing any of those trends now in the startup world?
There's a lot of different trends that are popping up. Obviously, right now, the main things are solving the global supply chain. That's not going to go away anytime soon. There's a large call for anything that can solve the like food tech is huge, ag tech, anything like that, and that's going to be a big thing. And interestingly, I'm seeing like energy as it's on the downswing because people are realizing that there's just too much the cost to create all of the energy tech is not, it's causing more fossil fuel backup elsewhere. So people that can create low quality energy, that's high on the list. So energy scavenging is big. So if you can create energy at low cost from existing things like the garbage piles in China, rather than solar, that's another one.
That's great. And so you, besides being an innovative leader and technologist, you also are an investor. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how does the investor viewpoint changes? Because it's a totally different totally different priority, totally different mindset. So when you're sitting on the other side of the table as an investor, how does your mindset change? What do you look at, and what do you see in the startup, in the team, to be able to make that investment?
So there's two things. Like, one, it either has to be in my wheelhouse for like, what are the things that I actually know about? Because when I invest in somebody, I either want to like completely trust in the team and like I'm just giving them money and I'm going away, or I want to be involved somehow in the company. Like not like a helicopter investor, but like just I want to know something about them because I want to be able to help them to make connections or something. So what I'm looking for is a team that has the potential to. It's a really hard thing to quantify, but like, think about like people that that no matter what they do, they're not going to give up. Like, and when you meet that person, they're just putting, like, you just know that like it doesn't matter what the thing is, but they're just going to like keep going. And you're going to have to talk them out of stopping. So when you meet that person, it's just like, oh yeah, here's my money.
It goes back to your earlier point that if you want to build a successful business, you just have to sacrifice a lot of other things, right? Okay.
Yeah. And like, so generally it's the people that don't need the money that I'm most likely, that don't need money from me, that I'm most likely to invest in.
I see. That's awesome. And so also let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is mistakes. Like, what are some of the typical mistakes that you have seen people make due to which their idea, even though the idea was awesome, but they were not able to make it?
I mean, there's all sorts of things. I mean, there's so many great products out there, but it's usually just like they couldn't get enough market share in time. And that's it's a crapshoot. It's always a crapshoot with a startup. Like, you could have the best product in the world, but just for some reason, like people just didn't find out about you. Or even if they did, like they might not have liked the color choice of or that, like for me, there was one product that I didn't invest in specifically because like, and I do a lot of food investing, and like the package that they gave me, like I didn't like the way it felt in my hand. And when they did finally launch, like that turned out to be like, I mean, I told them, I was like, you need to change your packaging. And they're like, no, we're already fine. But like, that was the feedback they got, that people didn't like to hold the package.
Wow, that's interesting. Very interesting. And what about you talked about Evernote, and I think from what I recall, Evernote had some competition, but then we like, I talked to a lot of startup founders. They always talk about competition. They always talk about crowded market. So What are your views around how to handle competition in a particular niche? Is it feasible to find greenfield projects where there is no competition? Should you look for competition? And if there is competition, what is your advice on dealing with that?
I would always find a product or like where there is competition because somebody else has already done the footwork for you.
Yeah.
If you're in a greenfield, then like you have to spend most of your marketing budget and time in educating people as to what you do. So that's going to be like way more effort and time than most people have. So like if you're let like the P&Gs and a company like that do the greenfield stuff.
Yeah.
You should do a follow on where there is a big field and just be better than other people at what they're already doing. So like with Evernote, we had OneNote. Microsoft had already done the work for us. So all we had to do was be better than OneNote, which wasn't hard.
I see. That's awesome. That's great advice. I actually I subscribe to the same notion and I share the same thoughts with the startup founders. And now you also mentioned that one of the reasons why startup fails is that they're not able to capture the attention of their clients, or they're not able to capture the customer base and get the referrals and whatnot. So how does a startup go about doing that? Because they are new, nobody trusts them. They are sort of trying things out. What is the most effective way for a startup to start getting revenue, start getting those customers in?
Well, the hardest to get is your first sale, which like if you can't convince your mom to spend money on you, then you failed. And then you've got to convince like your best friend and your aunt and everybody else to buy your product. And if you can't convince them, then you've really failed. So like your first sale, like once you've done that, great. Then your next 10, like that's all your friends and family. And now you've got to convince them to let all of their friends and family know. So like if your cousins and like their friends at work, their coworkers start using it, then you've got something. But if you can't even convince your first cousin to like get his coworker to log into your application or to buy your peanut butter or whatever it is, then you failed.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's carry on this analogy. So as we start to get these customers and we are targeting a unicorn status, a $1 billion status, one other thing that I have noticed is how sustainable is the growth, because a company can grow, and sometimes I've seen companies try to grow too fast and they fail, and sometimes they try to grow very slowly. And this is what a lot of people who are not in the startup world, they try to see, growth is growth. Like what does that even mean? Like too fast or too slow? Have you experienced something like that? What are your views on how fast, what is sustainable growth?
So sustainable growth is, first you should grow as fast as like your inventory can keep up with you. So, and so like whether it's a software program where like you've got servers that you can pay for and that aren't going to go offline, or if you're a company where you have inventory that you have to keep, then like you have to figure out like how much money you can feasibly pay for in advance for things to come, and then keep yourself online, and that's your growth. That's your sustainable growth curve. And then as more money comes in, like you can see the scale coming up. So if you can predict within and you can do this like 3 months out at a time. So like every 3 months, take another snapshot and see like how much more you can do. But your sustainable growth is like, if I can just get a little bit more inventory to get ahead of the people so that they're not waiting for me to ship. If I can just pay a little bit more to AWS so that they're not going to shut off my servers. That's what you gotta do the calculation, because like you're gonna have to put some money on your credit cards. You're gonna have to like take out some loans here in the beginning, but eventually the money's gonna start rolling in, and then but you don't want to be too far in the hole.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And then one of the other things, we are on a show called Bootstrapping Your Dreams. So, in your opinion, do you think as companies grow, they can grow without getting external investments, or do you think there is a point where you cannot grow beyond a certain point without getting external investments?
I think that once you get to, so yes, I think that you can get to the point of, it's possible to just keep building your company sustainably forever. If you're not trying to do hyper growth, then you never need to take external investment. But if you want to be if you want to scale into multiple locations at the same time, and you have the ability to do that successfully, then you are going to have to take external investment. But for most companies, they don't ever have to enter that hyper growth phase, and they'll be totally fine, and you can still build generational wealth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, one of the last questions I ask is about mentors. So, you have had such amazing success, such amazing career. Have you had any mentors, and if so, what kind of role did they play in your success?
So I've had a lot of mentors in my career. The first one, of course, is my dad. Just always being there, still being there, to be able to ask for financial advice whenever I needed it. He's not a computer guy, but he's definitely a financial guy, which has been very helpful. The first person that hired me at THQ, he's been around. I can call him up whenever I want. He got me into multiple jobs over the years.
Awesome.
And I've actually become mentors and advisors to people because of him. So it's he's like my mentor grandfather. And yeah, I've had a bunch of different people throughout the career, but it's almost all of mine have been men too. So that's an interesting anecdote, but probably because there aren't that many women in my career.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is great. Well, thank you so much for being with us. This has been a fascinating conversation, and thanks so much for sharing your experience. It was a very interesting journey you've had. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us how people can reach out to you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. I am Heathriel on all of the social medias, and you can find me on heathriel.com.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. We'll put those links in the show notes so that people can reach out easily.
Thank you, Manuj.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Sarah, producer of the Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. This episode has come to an end. Don't forget to check out the episode show notes for the links to the resources mentioned in this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Until the next episode, goodbye. Keep going and keep winning.